Shalom and welcome to Shmoo's Views, Torah Observant Judaism. Last time we were together, we left off with Jacob, prepared to meet his destiny. And we're going to continue that in today's lesson of the weekly Parsha. We're probably going to double up here again like we did last time because we really do have to play catch up here. So we will be doing both Parshat VaYishlah and VaYeshev. We'll be covering those today. So let's get started. Oh, before we do though, hit that subscribe button if you could, and that way you and that notifications bell. That way you will be notified every time a new video gets posted here on the our YouTube channel. Also, hit that like button if you could, the thumbs up notification, and like and subscribe. So we'd appreciate that if you could do that. Also, if you would like to visit our website, Shmoo's Views, Torah Observant Judaism, the link to that will be down below in the description of this video. So without further ado, let's get started. And I've titled this Yaakov Wrestles and Yaakov Comes Home. Some insights that we have from when we read Genesis 32, chapter 32, verse 4, through Genesis 36, verse 43, is that in fear, Yaakov calls out to Hashem for safety and deliverance for himself, his family, and everything he possessed. However, this supplication to Hashem is not based upon his own merit, so he's come a long way, but strictly upon the promise of Adonai given to him, his father Yitzhak, and his grandfather Abraham. In Genesis 32:13, he said, "Yet you have said, I will deal bountifully with you and make your offspring as the sands of the sea, which are too numerous to count." It's just Yaakov is reminding Hashem of his promise, thereby letting Adonai know that not because of anything Yaakov has done, but only because of the words of the promise of Adonai, is he and his worth saving and delivering. He says in 32:11, "I am not worthy of the kindness that you have so steadfastly shown to your servant." Yaakov has certainly come a long way from that brash young usurper that fled from his brother over 3 decades earlier. He has become a new man, molded and shaped by Hashem, ready and fit for his role that will soon be revealed with Adonai, granting him a new name from Yaakov to Yisrael, one that will forever be stamped upon the land he will inherit and the peoples he will father. Genesis 32:29 says, said Hashem, "Your name shall no longer be Yaakov, but Yisrael, for you have striven with Elohim and have prevailed." God said to him, "You whose name is Yaakov, you shall now be called Yaakov no more, but Yisrael shall be your name." Thus he named him Yisrael, Genesis 35:9 and 10. The moving away from the worship and trust of many gods to the one true God was a very slow process for the family and servants of Yaakov. It didn't happen overnight. While Yisrael, his father and grandfather, fully realized not only the unique oneness of God, the creator of all that is and is not, those surrounding him, even members of his own household, were a bit slow in the uptake. It says here that in Genesis 35:2 through 4, "So Yaakov said to his household and to all who were with him, Rid yourselves of the alien gods in your midst, purify yourselves and change your clothes. Come, let us go up to Bethel, and I will build an altar there to the God who answered me when I was in distress, and who has been with me wherever I have gone." They gave to Yaakov all the alien gods that they had, and the rings that were in their ears, and Yaakov buried them under the terebinth that was near Shechem. That was quite a move. It really was. Yaakov believed in the one true God, but everyone in his household had come out of idolatry, including his wife. So it took a little time for them, but now he's getting ready to enter back into the land of promise, and he wants to make sure that none of those idols follow him in. So some reflections here in verse 4 in chapter 32 is translated as messengers being sent by Yaakov ahead of him to meet his brother Esau. Rashi interpreted this to mean real angels, not just ordinary men or servants of Yaakov. These angels were dispatched in order to put the fear of God into Esau, so as to change his demeanor toward Yaakov when they were to finally meet. It is obvious that Esau was not coming to greet his long-gone brother with love. You don't bring 400 fighting men along with you unless your intent was one of vengeance. By sending ahead of him and the angelic messengers, Esau, filled with the fear of Adonai, was moved from an attitude of vengeance to one of conciliation and compassion for his brother. Rashi thought Yaakov was using wisdom, not a lack of faith, for he had come to know himself well and realized his own sinful behavior in the past with his brother, and perhaps recent failures had at some point to measure up to Hashem's favor for protection from his brother, thereby setting up the events leading up to the encounter, that is, the measured gifts in droves to Esau in advance. The Midrash, however, isn't as kind to Yaakov as Rashi was. And it dictates that his fear of Esau revealed not practical wisdom, but a lack of trust in Hashem's protection of him, his family, and his entire household. I personally side with Rashi on this issue. There are other commentaries from sections of the Zohar and the Rambam that also give some slack to Yaakov, indicating his fear of Esau was both practical and necessary in order to draw him even closer to Adonai for protection, and to ensure the fulfilling of Hashem's promise to him to bless and make a great nation out of him, going back to Genesis 32:13. What is of real significance of the telling of the wrestling match between Yaakov and the man or angel the night before his brother Esau? What was the significance of that? See Genesis 32:25-31. That's where his name was changed from Yaakov to Israel. Well, one, it was used by Hashem to issue Yaakov that new name I just spoke of, one more befitting, not only of his own future, but the destiny of his offspring, the Jewish people. Two, just as Yisrael or Yaakov walked away from that encounter victorious, both a pronounced limp that would be part of the rest of his earthly existence, so too his namesake, the people and nation of Israel, would suffer injuries, persecutions, struggles throughout, hard times in its existence, only to one day ultimately succeed to the heights of accomplishment far greater than any nation before or since, culminating in the Messianic age with the rule of Hashem from the land of Israel, with Mashiach ben David on the throne and the Shekinah of Adonai coming forth from the Kodesh HaKodeshim in the rebuilt Beit HaMikdash on Mount Moriah in Jerusalem. In that future time, all will know Adonai is King and will offer unto him alone their praise and adulation, who is eternal forever and ever. Now let's take a look at the second Parsha found in Genesis 37:1-40:23. I would really encourage you, if you need to, if you haven't read these Parshas, and let's say we're behind, like I said, we're playing catch up here for these videos. So if it's been a while since you've read them, if it has, then I would suggest, pause this video and read these chapters and then come back. But we're going to move on now, and I've entitled this one Tunic for Tunic. And there are three things that that can destroy the familial foundation: favoritism, distrust, and envy. All three were very active in the household of Yaakov. He favored Joseph over his other children. He trusted Joseph's word over that of his brothers. And Yaakov gave special attention to Joseph and gifts not afforded the others. Now, Yisrael loved Joseph best of all his sons, for he was the child of his old age, and he made him an ornamental tunic. Joseph didn't help the situation much by being a tattletale to his father about the goings-on of his brothers. The Torah says, and Joseph brought bad reports of them to their father. Of course, the natural outcome was his older brother developed envy against Joseph, and distrusted him, which led to a lot of strife between them. And when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them, they hated him all the more, so that they could not speak a friendly word to him. Joseph was also gifted with the ability to interpret dreams, his and those of others. However, at 17 years of age, he lacked the wisdom to know when and to whom to share them. This led to his brothers selling him off into slavery. Once Joseph had a dream which he told to his brothers, and they hated him even the more. Come, let us sell Joseph to the Ishmaelites. They sold Joseph for 20 pieces of silver to the Ishmaelites, who brought Joseph to Egypt, Mizraim. Yaakov had spent many decades not seeing the fulfillment of Hashem's promise to him. For years he served his uncle Lavan in Haran as more of a servant than a son-in-law. Then he lived in fear of his brother Esau's vengeance upon his return to Canaan. Soon after, his favorite and most loved wife, Rachel, dies and can't even be buried in the family burial cave his grandfather Abraham had purchased many years earlier. Then his first wife, Leah, dies too, leaving him to raise his youngest two sons, Joseph and Benjamin, in the care of his two concubines who favored their own sons over them. He also had to bury his own father. Just when he begins to think that perhaps things might settle down, he receives news from his other sons that Joseph, his most favorite offspring, has been killed, dismembered, and eaten by a wild beast. It is no wonder that Yaakov could not and would not be comforted. Would you? No matter what his sons and daughters said, he could not be consoled, and his shiva for Joseph was unending. All his sons and daughters sought to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted, saying, "No, I will go down mourning my son to Sheol." Thus his father bewailed him. The story of this dysfunctional family now digresses to reveal what became of Yehuda, the brother who changed the minds of his siblings from killing Joseph to the idea of selling him for profit. This is where the term blood money was born. To offset their feeling of guilt, the brothers now lowered Yehuda in their esteem. That and seeing the intense grief of his father became more than Yehuda could bear. So he takes and moves his own family some distance and goes into business with an Adulamite named Hirah. However, moving away from his father and brothers didn't remove the stain of his guilt, and it resulted in the death of his two eldest sons. The adage, the acorn doesn't fall far from the tree, is befitting here. Hashem, in his mercy, allows Yehuda to experience the same pain of loss that his actions against Joseph had caused his father. This act of kindness on the part of Hashem prepares Yehuda for the role he is destined to play as the forebearer of the roots of Mashiach and the yet-to-be-revealed Davidic lineage. See Genesis 49, 8 through 12. This segue in the story also lays the groundwork for understanding the ancient practice of the Levirate marriage, further developed and expounded by Moshe in Devarim, or Deuteronomy 25:5. I could get more into the birth of Yehuda's twin sons with his daughter-in-law Tamar, Tunic for Tunic, but suffice it to say that Perez, like his name implies, was destined to be born first, even though his twin, Zerah, put forth his hand first out of the womb. While Zerah means brightness or great shining like the sun, the name of his twin brother, Perez, means a breach, as of the moon that waxes and wanes, only to eventually be fully revealed in its full glory. Prophetically, Perez, as the firstborn of the Davidic line from Yehuda, would, like the moon, have a kingdom that would come and go, wax and wane, only to be fully realized when the final Davidic king, Mashiach, arrives. Back in Mizraim, or Egypt, Joseph is doing well after having been sold to Potiphar, a high-ranking priestly member of the court of Pharaoh. Hashem blesses all that Joseph touches, enriching Potiphar. So the young Hebrew slave is put in charge of the entire estate of Potiphar. Of course, with great responsibility comes great opportunity for the evil inclination to raise its ugly head, and it does so in the guise of Potiphar's wife, who is relentless in trying to tempt Joseph to bed her. His constant rebuff at her attempts only increases her desire for him. What is that old adage? Honey tastes sweeter when gotten from a fully protected, undefiled hive. See the Mishnah, Upsim 3:11. She finally gets Joseph cornered one afternoon and tries to pull him to her bedchamber. He pulls violently away, leaving his tunic in her hand, and flees outside the home, her home, to the courtyard. Fearing Joseph might tell her husband of her actions, she screams rape. Her servants round up Joseph and hold him until Potiphar comes home to his sobbing wife and the damning evidence held in her hand. Joseph is immediately thrown into Pharaoh's prison for dignitaries of the state. This may indicate that Potiphar may have not fully been convinced of his wife's accusations. If he had been, Joseph would have been thrown mercilessly into a slave prison where he would have literally starved or been beaten to death. Again, Hashem blesses Joseph, and the prison warden sees the hand of Adonai in everything that Joseph touches, so he puts him in charge of caring for the most distinguished prisoners. In this case, it is Pharaoh's chief cupbearer and chief baker. This is where the earlier revelation of Joseph's gifts for dream interpretation comes into full measure. Each of his two wards have a similar dream on the same night. They reveal their dreams to Joseph, who gives them each its meaning. See Genesis 40, verses 1 through 23. This Parsha of VaYeshev leaves us hanging in midair. The cupbearer, having been reinstated to his former high position as servant to Pharaoh, has forgotten his promise to Joseph of pleading his case before the sovereign. So what's going to happen next? Well, for that, you'll have to wait till the next lesson. Before we leave here also, I do want to mention that after Passover is over next week, we will be looking at a six-part study on the journey of the Spirit, most of it based upon Kabbalah and from the Torah and the prophets and the writings. But until, we're going to wait till Passover is over before we get into, it's finished before we get into that. So until next time, like I said before, please hit that subscribe button if you can, and hit the thumbs up so that our algorithm can, get this video out to others. And we appreciate it, and I hope you come back. And be sure to hit that notification bell so you'll know when further videos have come, available. Until then, happy Passover, and we'll see you next time.